Good morning. This is Sue Kaler from the Massachusetts Library System. It's Monday, March 21st, and I'm re-recording the webinar that was given on Friday, March 18th. There have been some changes since then, and it was just simpler to re-record rather than to try and edit. We are recording, as I say, and we'll share you the recording, and I'll send you the slides after the fact. We are in the process of creating a LibGuide covering the pilot project. The LibGuide will be available at http://guides.masslibsystem.org/interstate_delivery. This isn't live, so you can't send your questions via chat, but you can email me afterwards. There really weren't many or any questions during the webinar on the 18th, so I'm just doing this without any questions. Basically, this is a pilot project running from April 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2016, and it's a project to expand free library van delivery between the southeast portion of Massachusetts and all of Rhode Island. It's a project of the Massachusetts Library System together with the Rhode Island Office of Library and Information Services, OLIS. And Chai-Chen Chen, the person from OLIS, wanted to welcome all of you to this webinar. She's been great to work with, and we're very happy to work together with her to work out this pilot project. Delivery for both Massachusetts and Rhode Island is provided by Optima Worldwide Shipping, and they've been very instrumental in making this work as well. And a special thanks go to Norton Public Library, who is a pivot point and is crucial in this project. You'll understand more as I go along. The reason we're doing this is that we hope to save money for our member libraries. Postage costs are just going up and up and up. Every January, the post office can publish new rates, and they're certainly not going down year by year. This past January 2016, they discontinued a deep discount for very light items. It used to be cheaper to send items 7 ounces or less by first-class mail, and that's no longer true. So we don't see postage getting cheaper. If anything, it's getting to be more expensive. In addition, there are places that don't spend any money on returning ILL items via postage, via the U.S. Postal Service. We ask our requesting libraries how far they want us to go when we borrow things for them here at the MLS. We ask them whether they're willing to go to charging libraries or to limit us to free libraries, and we ask if they're willing to pay return postage or if they want us to stick to places that are on delivery. And about 15% of the requesting libraries need to stick to delivery-only places. So this pilot project will expand the number of delivery-only places for those libraries that have chosen not to pay return postage. They either don't have the money or they've chosen to spend what little money they do have for other things. Geographically speaking, Massachusetts is kind of complicated in the pilot. We're limiting the pilot to participating libraries in Southeastern Massachusetts. That's basically the geography of the networks that are Clams, Old Colony, and Sales. Not necessarily libraries that just belong to those networks, but in the geography of those networks. And from a lending point of view, it's that same geography, Clams, Old Colony, and Sales, plus the Minuteman Library Network. Here's a map of part of Massachusetts, and the geography that I'm talking about is the yellow circled area that covers the Old Colony area, the Sales area, and the Clams area. So the participating borrowing libraries will be all of the public libraries within those territories, some smaller schools, some smaller colleges, where we borrow on their behalf using a particular symbol. It also will include many of the academics in that area. Cape Cod Community College, Southeastern Mass University, Curry College, and so on. In fact, here is a list of the Massachusetts participants. So you've got their OCLC symbols and the name of the institution. Minuteman and Old Colony are the MLN and OCD symbols, and the Massachusetts library system uses those two symbols to borrow on behalf of about 500 libraries across the Commonwealth, and also to lend. Minuteman is the MLN symbol, and Minuteman will be a participant in this pilot as a lender, but not as a borrower. That's because all of the libraries that are requesting under the Minuteman symbol are under other delivery routes rather than the S route, and we're limiting this to the S route. So you'll be able to borrow from Minuteman from Rhode Island, via delivery, but you won't need to lend to Minuteman from Rhode Island via delivery. The Old Colony Network symbol, OCD, is used by the Massachusetts library system, again, to borrow and to lend. And we'll be able to lend using that symbol, and sometimes we'll be able to borrow using that symbol on delivery. We use that symbol for requesting libraries in the S territory, but also for libraries in the C and W territory. So we want you to go ahead and ship to S libraries on delivery, via delivery if you're a Rhode Island lender, but not to C and W libraries. So how are you going to figure out which is which? In the borrowing notes in OCLC, we have put in Mass S delivery route if it's one of the places that is on the S delivery system. And in addition, in the LibGuide, there'll be a list of the 114-ish places that we borrow for using the OCD symbol that are participants in S delivery. So a little bit confusing, but not too bad, I hope. Going back, MLN is a lender, but not a borrower via this expanded delivery. OCD is a lender and sometimes as a borrower. It's a borrower if the requesting library is on S, and you can figure that out by looking at the LibGuide or looking for the borrowing notes. Here's a list of the Rhode Island participants. Rhode Island uses a code for their delivery system. So on this slide, you've got the OCLC symbol on the left, the institution name in the middle, and the delivery code on the right. In Rhode Island, it's just about everybody with the exception of Brown and the Roger Williams Law School. And they have a slight complication too. The OLIS staff uses the RDS symbol to borrow from many libraries in Rhode Island, just as the MLS uses the MLN and the OCD symbol for those same purposes. OLIS borrows for almost all of the public libraries and some smaller schools and so on. If the requesting library is on delivery in Rhode Island, there'll be a note in the borrowing notes. All of the public libraries are on delivery, and the only exception is if the place is a delivery on demand library, then we don't want you to ship to them from Massachusetts via delivery. There'll be a list of them in the LibGuide again. So how is this all going to work? Starting from a Massachusetts point of view, we have a sort site in Plymouth, and it will have an extra bin for the items that are going to Rhode Island. The sorters in Plymouth will drop items in transit to Rhode Island into that bin. That bin will be picked up and dropped off at the Norton Public Library along with items that are actually for the Norton Public Library by Optima Delivery on a Massachusetts truck. Then there's a Rhode Island truck that goes from Providence, where the Optima sort site for Rhode Island is, to Wheaton College. Wheaton College happens to be a member of the Helen Consortium, which is a Rhode Island academic consortium, and there's a truck that runs up from Providence to Wheaton College, and it's going to just make a slight detour to Norton Public Library and pick up those materials from Massachusetts that are headed to Rhode Island, and at the same time drop off materials from Rhode Island that are headed to Massachusetts. The special stop at the Norton Public Library will happen 3 times a week, so we're very grateful to Helen and to the Norton Public Library that this is going to be able to happen. Once the items for Rhode Island are picked up from the Norton Public Library, they'll go down to Providence and be sorted as usual to the proper Rhode Island locations. And then for reverse traffic, the whole thing will just happen in reverse. There's a slot in Providence for Massachusetts materials, and those would be put there, delivered to the Norton Public Library by a Rhode Island truck, picked up by a Massachusetts truck, and then delivered to Plymouth where they'll be sorted. The Massachusetts delivery system is complicated in some ways. It has multiple routes. The participants of this pilot are all on the S route, and they have S slips. The one exception will be items that are being loaned to you from either Minuteman or Old Colony, MLN or OCD. And because of technical reasons, because the MLS office is not in the S territory, to return them to us, you need to use a C slip. But those items will have return address slips in them. It's my staff that'll be doing the lending. We will make sure we put the proper slip in so that you can return them to us. Just use that slip and everything will be fine. Most of the participants will be on the S route, and they'll be lending to you from the S route, and you'll be returning to them to the S route. The Massachusetts slips have the town or the college on the town or institution line, kind of the biggest part of their being. For example, you would use Bridgewater State University rather than Clement C. Maxwell Library, or the OCLC code. Here's some examples of Massachusetts delivery slips. Giant S on the top, and then a kind of a higher level town or institution, Bridgewater State University, MASH-P, whatever it might be. And then the bottom you can fill in or not as you care to. And these slips will be on the LibGuide for your use. The Rhode Island delivery slips are a little different. They use a 3-letter code for each participant, and the delivery code is not necessarily the OCLC code. In fact, it rarely is. Bryant University, for example, is BRY for Rhode Island delivery, although their OCLC symbol is BRB. So if you were trying to deliver to Bryant University, you would use BRY, not Bryant University, and not BRB. And this is an example of the special Rhode Island delivery slips we've come up with for this project. For those of you in Rhode Island already, these should look pretty familiar. They just have a slight addition of the words Rhode Island on the top. We wanted to make them so that the sorters in Plymouth would understand that these were going to Rhode Island, and then make them familiar to the sorters in Providence so they would get to the right place. This particular one is going to CCW, which is, I believe, yes, Community College of Rhode Island. You see that their symbol is actually the same as both an OCLC symbol and a delivery code symbol. So, going back down, you don't put Community College of Rhode Island, you put CCW. Now, I wanted to address how you might take advantage of this pilot from OCLC point of view. When you're borrowing, presumably you would want to favor these new delivery lenders in your custom holdings paths. And I'm going to go through how you can do this. What you do is you do some research on custom holdings groups in order to figure out who you want to put in what new group. Maybe you'd have a group, say you were a Massachusetts participant, maybe you'd have a group of all the Rhode Island new potential delivery lenders who lend books. Maybe you'd have another group of the Rhode Island new potential users who lend audios or videos. You can look in the OCLC policies directory to see who lends what, or I'll give a shout out for the AV lenders list that I've been maintaining on Sherrill for a long time. The URL is right here, but basically if you Google Sherrill you can find it. Let's see if I can get there. Okay, this is Sherrill. It's just sherrill.org. And under Sherrill there's custom holdings and document supplier lists and a custom holdings list, just one right now, my AV lenders list. I'm sure that Sherrill would be glad to have new lists if you would care to share anything with the Sherrill folks. You can download the list, and it's an Excel file. It gives you the symbol, the state, the price or range of prices, whether they lend VHS, DVD, or audios, and then various restrictions. For example, if they don't lend new things, that will be marked as item age restriction true. If they demand that items be returned via UPS, they probably wouldn't be involved in this particular project because God knows it's not UPS, but there'd be a true there. If they don't lend feature films, that would be marked in this column. If they limit their lending to a particular region, that would be in this column. I don't list places that only lend within their state. I figure most people within that state would know that. If they are limiting their AV lending to other academic libraries or other public libraries, there would be a true entered under library type. If they have a short loan period less than 2 weeks, that would be under short loan. If they don't renew, there'd be an entry under no renewals. And if there's some other comment that I couldn't figure out where else to put, that's under other comments. So I encourage you to have a look at this AV lenders list and send me email if you know of corrections that I should make or other places that I don't know about. I'm always looking for AV lenders. But it would be a useful place to go and look and figure out whether or not the new participants could lend the formats that you're interested in. So let's go back to the PowerPoint here and start it up full size again. So you could, as I say, you could make a variety of different groups depending on what kind of formats these places would lend. To make a custom holdings group, you go to Service Config and click on WorldShare ILL, create a custom holdings group, and then you put in the symbols that you're interested in and save it with a name that makes sense to you. You can get into Service Config from the Interlibrary Loan home screen. Here it is right here. So OCLC Service Config, WorldShare ILL, Custom Holdings Groups, and create new group. We have a group that we started for Rhode Island delivery places. I think, what did we call it? Oh, we called it Dell Rhode Island. Here it is. So this is the kind of thing, delivery in Rhode Island, and we're listing the places that we think would be in here. I've actually discovered recently that LRW, Roger Williams University Law School, is not going to participate, so I would edit them out before I would start to use this. You can always change your groups as you go along. but this is the basics. You go into Service Config, Custom Holdings Groups, and make yourself a new group or edit an existing group. Once you have some groups set up the way you want them, you then have to put them in a path. You do this also from the service config. You click on Custom Holdings Paths, select the path that you want, and drag your groups around so that they're in the path the way you want them. So this is the way this works. Back in OCLC, under Custom Holdings Paths, you look at a path that you already have. So for example, here's our path for books. And these are the groups that are already in this path, the ones over on the right. Groups chosen for this path, 47. And these are the ones that are not in the path, 55. So when I was ready to get started with this project, I would highlight Delivery Rhode Island and just drag it over here and put it probably right after Free Delivery, which is Free Massachusetts Delivery. Once you're happy with it, you click on Save, and then the next time you log into OCLC, the path will be updated with new places in the path. You can do the same thing for your audio path and your video path if you have such. If you use Iliad, I understand from Iliad users that you can do a certain amount of tweaking from within Iliad itself, but that you may still want to use the OCLC service configuration to make a new custom holdings group or path. That's kind of beyond what you can do from within Iliad. But I'm not an Iliad user, so I don't know for sure. I defer to your expertise. We do have an Iliad user on staff, Tressa Santillo. She's the new resource sharing librarian at the Massachusetts Library System, and she has very kindly said that she'd be willing to talk to any Iliad user that needed help with this. You can contact her at tressa@masslibsystem.org. All right, so let's just talk about this. From a borrowing point of view, you've set up a new path and you've found some new delivery users on the opposite side of the border. You've gotten the item from somebody via delivery, returning the item. Hopefully, the lender has very kindly put a slip in and just use that. If not, you can check the delivery directory and the slips that we'll have in the guides. The slips are set up for Rhode Island libraries, would look under Rhode Island Libraries information, and the Massachusetts libraries would look under Massachusetts Libraries information, and they'd find slips for the opposite place. When you're lending, you're going to check and see if the requesting library is participating in the pilot, and if it's OCD or RDS, the two symbols that the MLS and OLIS use for borrowing, you're going to check those borrowing notes. If the requesting library or the ship to location is on delivery in the pilot, you're going to send the item to them via delivery using the slip that you can find in the LibGuide, and you're going to include a properly filled out return address delivery slip to make it easier to get your item back via delivery. So we want to know how much traffic will happen during this pilot in this manner. We want to be able to count up how much happens this way. You don't really have to count up as you go along because you can figure this out kind of after the fact using OCLC's reciprocity report or Iliad's who do I borrow from and who do I lend to. As we get going, I'll send out some information about how to find those two reports, but you may already know about them, and they do count traffic between particular symbols over time. So that would be a way for us to keep track after the fact. We'll want to know how satisfied you are with this. We certainly will want to know if there are any issues with it as we go along. As I said, we'll want a statistical report of how much traffic. Then we'll do a little math to figure out how much money was saved. We can figure the average cost via the mail and multiply by the number of requests and see how much money was saved. We want to know whether you want to continue a pilot like this, turn it into a non-pilot, a real expansion. And if we are interested in continuing, where else would you like us to go? What other states would be particularly useful to you? And what other regions should we see if we can reach out to? We have some ideas, but we'd love to know what your ideas are. We're very excited about finally getting to try this. We've been talking about expanded delivery for years, so we're very excited to get this going, and we thank you all for being willing to participate. Please be in touch and let us know how it works for you and whether there's anything that we could explain better or do differently. So thank you very much from the MLS, from Sue Kaler, me. My resource sharing assistance can be reached at ill@masslibsystem.org. I am Sue at masslibsystem.org. And from OLIS, it's Chai-Chin Chen, the resource sharing coordinator, who is chaichin.chen@olis.ri.gov. Thank you very much, and talk to you later. Goodbye.